Man, it's been a while since a manga's made me feel this excited. Yu Yu Hakusho is the story of a legendary artist finding their voice and honing their craft, not across decades, but months. It has been one of the most fascinating reads I've covered on this channel so far, not so much because of its story initially, but because it has essentially taken me on a meta journey through an author's transition from a romantic comedy writer to a fully fledged master of battle shonen.
Jesus Christ, I haven't heard glazing that sloppy since Yumika Seiki. Not that Mark is wrong, the Dark Tournament saga is one of the best examples of a shonen tournament arc, but the praise I've heard some give it comes off very rhapsodic. I was never the biggest Yu Yu Hakusho fan, and quite honestly, I think very little about the mangaka's abilities when it comes to long-winding plot points. But the Dark Tournament saga is a strong story that has many moments that, while trope-tastic, perfectly reflect the taste of the reading audience during the early 90s and builds upon various tournament arcs that came before, pushing that particular writing device to areas that it hadn't experienced within the pages of Shonen Jump. Yoshihiro Togashi has had an envious career. Yu Yu was a solid series off rip, telling the story of 4 young males who come together, put aside their differences, and go up against the common threat. Nothing crazy, right? Supernatural elements are inserted from the start, with Yusuke being rezzed after sacrificing himself to protect a young boy from Truck Kun. Somewhat standard, especially in the wake of post-Raditz Dragon Ball. When he comes back to life, he's granted combat abilities and a new role as a spirit detective. The adventures that the main cast have for the first 50 chapters is all very standard shonen fluff. Togashi leans heavily on the influences of other mangaka that were popular at the time. Rumiko Takahashi, Toriyama, Araki are sprinkled into the early writings of Yu Yu. As such, the manga, while endearing, doesn't have a lot to separate itself from other series of its era, that is, until the Dark Tournament saga. Only 1 year into serialization, Togashi does something that most authors cower to even think of. He pivots his series into an entirely new direction, embracing his love of gore and suspense, morphing Yu Yu Hakusho into a gritty, mature battle manga that blends together many elements from the past and many more tropes that were current at the time but underutilized by shonen mangaka. Yusuke Urameshi and his human/demon crew of hypebeasts Kurama, Hiei, Kuwabara, and the various women who do nothing but screech travel to the underworld to participate in the Dark Tournament, a team-based battle between various other demon groups. Don't think too much about what leads up to the Dark Tournament saga. In fact, just consider the Dark Tournament saga a standalone story. Organized by shady evil humans of influence, Yusuke's greatest case to that point is to defeat the other teams, win the tournament, and have whatever wish he wants granted. Now, despite how linear this arc is, it needs to be applauded for how much better it is than what came before. Yu Yu Hakusho is not a bad series by any means, but it opens up so clanky. Romance is an influence on the visual and pacing of the manga, but I don't think Togashi is a good writer for romance at all, as seen with his series prior to Yu Yu. Bishonen Boys is an aesthetic that he's very good at, and he's always had a strong eye for what we now call streetwear. But again, it's a character design that's rooted mostly in what other authors were capable of doing better. All this changes when the Dark Tournament saga begins. Togashi submerges his characters and world into an occult element that he had always been wanting to draw, something more horror-esque. This is when the story comes to life. Yusuke is no longer just a punk kid with a Kamehameha ripoff. He becomes a leader, a character with purpose, no longer preying at the cool feet of Jotaro Kujo. His dedication to getting stronger and overcoming his personal weaknesses is one of the main plot points throughout this arc. His growth as a character would see even more development in later arcs, but it's apparent here that Togashi knew there was more to his characters than just getting into endless battles. This is also observed with Kuwabara and Kurama, characters that, while fun to read and a joy to watch banter, were kinda underdeveloped and more useful as rag dolls or comic relief. Kuwabara, still the goofy sidekick, elevates beyond Krillin or Polnareff status and becomes a human worthy of any demon's attention. His battles throughout this arc show that Togashi is aware of the status of his punching bag, and while never becoming as strong or getting the respect that I think he deserved, Kuwabara still has many iconic moments, such as his battle against older Toguro. Despite this, he has quite a number of losses that I felt dragged down this part a lot and ultimately holds the series back from being as much of a classic as it should be. Kurama is the tactician, and his battles all have a sense of pomp and flair. His kindness and empathy also play a strong part at this point in the story, and even if his engagements aren't very exciting, he adds so much humanity in a series that is openly bigoted towards humans and their desires. Hiei is whatever. He's a shameless Vegeta clone that is never really challenged the same way that the rest of Team Urameshi is, but it's interesting to see how Togashi handles an overpowered supporting character at this point in his career. I think Hiei, Genkai, Koenma are interesting prototypes for better characters that Togashi would create and explore further in Hunter x Hunter. As mentioned, the Dark Tournament saga is a very linear story, but one that's done pretty well. Team Urameshi encounters obstacles in and outside of the ring, and as entertaining as their hijinks are, the story reads best when the tension and stakes are high. The demons in the stands hate humans and cheer for their blood at every moment, relishing in glee when the rules are stacked against them. The Toguro brothers are illustrated so menacingly. Togashi's understanding of body horror is rooted in David Cronenberg, showcasing visceral transformations that twist and churn the main antagonist into forms of absolute fear. Horror creeps into the pages as it seems as if the heroes will lose, thus jeopardizing the lives of everybody they know. The tournament eventually devolves into an edge fest, and while it's a bit hard to take everything that's happening so serious, Togashi is at least able to make you care. Characters' heads explode, necks are stabbed, arms are broken, training montages are steeped in misery and desolation. The humor, while present, takes multiple steps back to let Togashi cook with his new direction, with his gaggle of roughneck delinquents. You see his art develop in real time, occasionally utilizing inking techniques and shading that he would later fully develop in mid-period Hunter. Hell, you even pick up on many of the sketchy, backgroundless panels that he has now become known for. The Dark Tournament saga was Togashi's arrival and the beginning of a turbulent, yet lucrative and creatively fertile career. While it hasn't aged as well as some of the other arcs that were popular during this time, it stands out as a strong example of a young mangaka taking full control of their career, foregoing their influences that solidified job security, and embracing aesthetics and writing devices that would challenge readers and ultimately influence scores of young creatives for decades to come. Dark Tournament Saga is a weekly Shonen Jump Greatest Hit.